Here we are then, the Opposition View. We are West Ham podcast with a friend of mine, a friend of the podcast, talkSPORT's very own Natalie Sawyer, huge Brentford fan, of course, head of the game on Saturday at the Brentford Stadium, which I'm going to. Looking forward to it. It's probably a bit strong. We're not very good. You are quite good, Nat. You've got 2 more points than we have, 2 places above us, but you've lost games that people would expect you to lose away to Liverpool, Manchester City and Tottenham. You've done the business at home. I imagine a pretty positive feeling around the Bees at the moment.
Yeah, I think so. Like you say, our 3 away games, Liverpool, City and Spurs, not easy at all. No one would have expected to get anything out of those. To have scored first in both those City and Spurs games was a delight, but can't hold on to a lead. That's our problem. Scoring in the first minute doesn't suit us. But yeah, I think ultimately for us, winning our home games as much as we can is the key, really, to survival. Although I would like to think we'd do better than just surviving this season, because last season was so awful. I don't want to experience that again.
Yeah, I mean, I've felt sort of a sense of injustice. I don't know where to start, really, because I feel like Brentford have been robbed by 2 big refereeing decisions already this season. Right. One that went under the radar a little bit. Mateo Kovacic definitely should have been sent off for that tackle from behind on Wissa, and he's now out for a couple of months. Is that right?
Yeah, he's out. It's not great because he was in such great form. And I kind of agreed with you. It was that kind of 2 foot off. For me, it was 2 foot. 2 foot. He's off the ground. So I could see why it should have been a red. But you read some of the people that are in the know when it comes to these laws, and they're sort of suggesting that it was a yellow at best. But I sort of saw it as a red as well. And yeah, as you say, and unfortunately, Wissa came off the worst from it as a result of it. So yeah, he's out until I think at least the new year.
Yeah, I mean that's a big loss for you as well, isn't it?
Massive, because obviously Ivan Toney, we've got to move on from talking about him, but Wissa sort of come in and it's sort of been that focal line for us. I mean, he's not like an Ivan Toney. He's a very different type of player. He doesn't add that physicality that Ivan Toney would have brought, but he was our number 9. He was the one that would start down the middle, and he had a good start to this season, 3 goals and an assist as well. So it's just a blow, because him and Brian and Burmo were forming such a great partnership that, again, it's just such a shame that we're going to have to start again and see who else can link up with Brian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Visser, I feel like he loves a goal against West Ham as well. But then so does Mbeumo, and so does loads of players who play for Brentford, because you seem to do nothing but beat us since you've been back in the Premier League. And the other one, Vicario at Tottenham, literally juggling the ball outside of his penalty area, handballs it twice. And then apparently VAR, he didn't even get booked, nothing given. VAR didn't get involved because, and I quote, it wasn't denying a goal scoring opportunity. Mikael Damsgaard's literally underneath the ball, waiting for the cross to fall at his feet and put it in the net.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because when I first looked at it, I kind of, like you, obviously it's a definite handball. There's no doubt about that. I don't understand how the referee's not seen it or how the assistant hasn't seen it. I was flabbergasted. But I kind of originally thought it was never going to be a red because of the Dogso denial of a goal-scoring opportunity.
Dogso's nice. I like that.
I went with Dogso. It's just easier. But in my mind, like you say, looking back on it, there is Damsgaard. He is there waiting for the ball. And how you don't know what could happen as a result of him, getting a hold of that loose ball. So, yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's all down to interpretation at the end of the day. And what you see is, and this is what we always bang on about with the laws being so subjective, unfortunately. But what you think is a denial of a goal scoring opportunity, VAR didn't. So, yeah, you could say they were a little hard done by that one. But I quite like Thomas Frank's reaction to it. He was like, he kind of just sort of said, yeah, it was a handball, obviously, but if it had been a free kick, which he thought it would have been more than anything else, then it's very rare that you score from a free kick, was what his point was. So that wasn't the reason we didn't, get anything out of that game.
Yeah. I really like Dogso. I'm definitely going to use that from now on.
I don't know why I said Dogso. It just came into my head. I thought,
no, I've literally never heard it, but it's superb. But no, it feels like, I don't know, like how like last season, neutral fans just really felt sorry for Wolves because they kept getting tucked up by VAR. I'm just wondering if Brentford feel like they're my new Wolves for the season. I'm just like feeling like sort of really like put out on your behalf.
Well, I mean, I hope not. I don't want to be a whingy team. I don't want to be that. And I'm sorry to Wolves fans who might feel as though I was taking a shot at them there, but I kind of want it to be like we always say, it always comes around, doesn't it? So yes, there's been a few moments in these early games that have gone against us, but hopefully things will fall our way next time around. I don't want to be the team that we've written a letter to the PGMOL.
Yeah. Again.
I don't want to be that team because everyone just mocks you and laughs at you ultimately, I think, even though I know we all want to see improvements in refereeing standards, of course.
Yeah. It did feel a little bit like people like laughed at Wolves for a bit and then were like, oh no, we do feel for you now. Just talk quickly before we get into the football stuff more specifically, just chat a little bit about the Ivan Toney stuff. Before you and I have spoken about it previously, it felt sort of like on the cards, but then the Saudi move was a little bit of a surprise. No one in the Premier League, it appeared, ended up wanting to touch him. Really, Tottenham was sort of the big move, and they opted for Solanke instead. Some whispers around West Ham, but I feel like that was more just people just deducing as the teams at the top of the league ruled themselves out. And so, how much lower can we go here? What did you make of that situation? What did you make of him in Saudi? How are your feelings towards him? What do you think?
I mean, for me, he'll always be looked upon as a Brentford legend because he was part of the team that got us promoted. For the stuff that he did on the pitch, I've only got good positive things to say about him. And actually, from the fleeting moments that I've met him off the pitch, he's a really nice guy. So I'm never going to say anything negative about him. I realise there were the odd videos that we saw on social media that weren't necessarily favourable towards Brentford and the things that he would say. But I kind of just, ignore those because really he did his talking on the pitch for us and that's all that mattered. Apart from that.
Like he was like showing off to some girls in Ibiza or
There's an element of showing off, I'm sure he's not the first and, he won't be the last, all that sort of thing. The Saudi Arabia thing, if you're going to be offered 400 grand or whatever it is he's been offered a week, it's very hard to turn down. Of course, there's a part of me that feels I'd love to have seen him play at a higher level to see if he could have been that consistent striker that we all felt he could be, and play in the top European competitions, for example. But I must say, I'm absolutely delighted that we won't see him trying to score a penalty against us because I would hate to see that, and just play against us in general. So ultimately, listen, it's a move that's going to set him up and his family and his family's family for years and years, isn't it? So I can't blame him for making that move. I say he goes with my blessings because he has been when he has been on the pitch, he has been pretty fantastic for us, really.
Yeah. You and Thomas Frank are doing lots of things for the Brentford public image of being very magnanimous about stuff, aren't you?
That's how I see it in all fairness. I'm not going to listen. There are, I'm sure, other things that players could have done and said that could rile me up even, don't get me wrong. When that first social media video came up and he was mocking Brentford, of course it grates on you. But equally, like you say, I looked on it and just thought he's showing off. That's all he's doing. He's showing off. So maybe that's an element of maturity, Will.
Well, that's probably, you're just like grown up to me, Nat. Yeah, exactly that. You and Thomas Frank. Yeah. What do you expect him back soon? Because it feels like one of those where, although the deal was good, it just felt like the writing was on the wall. He had to leave Brentford, didn't he? It sort of like felt like that bit had to be fulfilled. The fact he hasn't gone to anywhere else in the Premier League or what people would have viewed as a sort of more expected move football wise. It feels a little bit to me like, look, I had to leave and this was the only option I had, so I take the money, blah blah blah. It doesn't. So I'm under no illusion. It doesn't feel like to me at all that we've seen the last of Ivan Toney playing the Premier League.
I do know what you mean. I mean, what is he, 28? So he could go to Saudi Arabia for a couple of years, earn all that lovely dosh, and then decide maybe there is still something in me that can compete at the highest level. I mean, in a way, you'd be a fool to rule him out for that because this is Ivan Toney. He's a showman. He is such an arrogant man in a kind of sporting way. I mean that.
Yeah. Sure of his own ability.
Yeah, that I can't see why he would rule himself out of that as well. So, I do know what you mean. Where he would end up, I'm not sure. But I mean, I'm sure in a weird way, I'm not saying he would come back to Brentford, but there'd be an element of Brentford fans thinking if we could have a link back with Ivan Toney and he could be the Ivan Toney that we had originally, or let's say the first couple of seasons in the Premier League, then we would take him back, no doubt. But yeah, I do know what you mean. There is an element of an unfinished business for him, I'm sure.
Well, when West Ham Nicholas Füllkrug becomes the latest in the long line of failed West Ham strikers who promised to deliver, I'm sure if we talk in 2 years' time, we normally give them about 18 months just to prove beyond all doubt that they aren't quite up to it at West Ham.
Are you being negative already?
Well, no, to be honest, I certainly am being negative about Lopetegui. I can't really be negative about Füllkrug because we've only seen a few glimpses of him.
Yeah.
And I think what's breaking West Ham hearts more is seeing all the goals John Duran's banging in at Aston Villa after he was filmed doing the crossed hammers on his Instagram story. It was all but done. We go for Füllkrug instead. That falls through, and then he's like the Premier League's, like the Colombia's Harry Kane. Füllkrug's like flattered to deceive when he's played and then gets injured. So yeah, I'm struggling with the Lopetegui sort of. Or what Lopetegui ball looks like at the moment. I'm still grieving for David Moyes. Everyone knows that.
I know you're a massive Moyes fan, and I like the fact that you're very open about that because there were so many dissenters. But what I would say is, in Lopetegui's defence, is that it does take time to bed in, doesn't it? No, do you not think? Because any manager, it's what actually with a lot of the managers that we've had on talkSPORT of late. Things like Gus Poyet, for example, Harry Redknapp as well. We've talked to him about it. I've asked the question of how long does it take to get your own sort of imprint on a team? I mean, Gus Poyet said it took about a season at Brighton. And, so listen, I know the thing is the Premier League's not forgiving, but no, I don't know. It might turn good. Look at me being nice about West Ham.
No, but all I think is you should be able to see some signs at least of what he's trying to do. I'm not saying it should click immediately, but I should at least have an idea of what he's trying to do and when it does click, what it will look like. But at the moment, there's nothing from my point of view. But hey, it's one of those things. But we have got rid of Said Benrahma, so that's a huge positive for the summer.
He might have worked in a Lopetegui team.
No chance. Absolutely not. Crescencio Somerville's come in and shown how to be a diminutive left winger and do it properly. I'm absolutely loving him already.
Yeah. We just didn't look after Benrahma in the way that we did.
As soon as Somerville signed, I was saying to everyone on the podcast as well, I was just like, Benrahma 2.0, not having him already, but he's actually been very good. He's won me round already. So the players you have got at Brentford, who was the guy, his name slips my mind, I should know this, but you sort of signed in lieu of Tony before he left?
Igor Thiago.
Okay, and he is injured. How long is he out for?
Certainly till 2025.
Okay, so with Visser out as well, where does that leave? Where does that leave you? Brian Mbeumo becoming a bit of a club legend if he's not already. Also, I think loves a goal against West Ham. But where does it leave you? Personnel wise, are you happy with what your squad looks like?
In the main, yeah, I was really happy with the summer business that we did. Fabio Carvalho, if he can get back to being that sort of Fulham Fabio Carvalho, because obviously it didn't really work at Liverpool for him, then that just brings in that creativity. We've got a young guy from Brazil called Gustavo Nunes. I'm not saying he's going to be playing every week because he's only 18, but again, a lot of hype around him. We brought in, obviously, Sepp van den Berg from Liverpool as a centre-half. Again, that was another area we did need to strengthen. So I think in general, we're quite happy with the business we've done. And forgive me if I've forgotten anybody else. But in general, I feel as though we've done really good business. We also, of course, brought in Magoma from Southampton, left-back, because we did Jadon Magoma, because Rico Henry is obviously our preferred left-back, but he's still injured. And he's been such a big miss for us. But Magoma has sort of recently started to play his part within that Brentford team, and he's done really, really well. So he's definitely a future star, hopefully, when it comes to left back issues for us. I think in general the shape of the team is all right. It's just we're picking up injuries when we don't want to be doing that already at the start of the season.
No, and you're not dissimilar to West Ham. Not being patronising, but we're all clubs who are at a level where all right, we might be able to afford a little bit more quality on the bench, but ultimately we are both clubs for whom you have your starting 11 with some star players in it, and you can afford to budget for a few star wages within that, and build a team around a few players, and then you have players on the bench who can hopefully come in and fill those gaps as best as possible. And when you lose some of the big names, you it does really affect teams of our level, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we are a team based on our first 11, and the rest just, as you say, either plug holes or you hope might be game changers. And don't get me wrong, I think if we have our full strength squad available, our bench won't look so naff. Strength on it, and game changes. Like I say, it's just when you start losing players like we've done with, especially up front with Thiago and Wiese, and you're talking about number 9s. Then it does become an issue for us. So, yeah, I mean, for example, it might be Fabio Carvalho and Brian Mbeumo that might start up front. We've seen that obviously happen. I think that was against Tottenham. So, obviously Thomas Frank has to be versatile in how he decides to pick his team. But there's obviously Kevin Schade. He can play on the left wing. He's very speedy. I'd like to think when we do have our best 11, we will have a front 3 because our 2 wingers are rapid. So... And then whoever plays in the middle, if it is Igor Thiago when he returns, hopefully, which I assume it would be, then you could hopefully see a similar sort of link up that we saw with Ivan Toney.
Yeah. So the 2 games you've played, beyond those away defeats, which, let's be honest, your season's not going to be defined on losing away to Liverpool, City and Brentford. You've beaten Crystal Palace at home 2-1, the only team West Ham have beaten this season, and then Southampton 3-1, who already sort of look pretty dead certs for going down. Russell Martin sticking doggedly to the style of football he wants to play, despite the fact that it doesn't seem to be bearing much fruit. What did Brentford do in those games? How did you sort of set up, and how did you play? How did you get those wins? And I assume you'll expect the same on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Crystal Palace game could have gone either way, and obviously they had that as a free kick ruled out, which probably shouldn't have been ruled out really. So I think that was a bit of a plucky win.
Oh, of course, that was for the the free kick that came.
There was
the free kick.
Eze took the free kick.
Yeah,
and the near post, he caught out Mark Flecken, but there was I forget who it was.
Oh,
Collins and a
Will Hughes, I think it was. Yeah. That actually, I'm feeling less sorry for Brentford now because that definitely should have stood, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I shouldn't have mentioned it, should I? So but that's a game that could have gone either way because it was a cracking game to start the season off with because it was going up on either end. As for the Southampton game, like you say, this dogged sort of determination of Russell Martin not going to change his style of play. I mean, full credit to him, he knows what he wants. But I do think, when we came up from the Premier League, we had to change our style of play because we couldn't be this expansive team that we were in the Championship. We had to be versatile. We had to sometimes be dogged and annoying and boring. But because how else, I don't see how else you can play when you're playing against some incredible teams, as my dog jumps up behind me. Oh, you can just see him.
You can't play Man City and Brighton and Arsenal and at their own game, can you?
We pressed Southampton ridiculously brilliant. Well, so well that it caused them to make mistakes. Yeah. That's what led to our pretty much, I think, all 3 goals really, because they all came from mistakes. So it's just crazy that they still want to. That Russell Martin still wants to play like that. Like I say, I feel part of me wants to say full credit to you. Maybe you think it'll work eventually, but
he's trying to pull a Vincent Kompany, isn't he?
Well, it is. I was about to say, if you can get the Bayern Munich job out of it, then that's fair enough. But I just don't know why he's not thinking, if it's not working in the game, I've got to change it. And he's not doing it. So it's a bizarre one. But yeah, that's how it was. So the first game, Crystal Palace, as I say, could have gone either way. But the Southampton game, we just pressed them so well that we benefited from it.
Yeah, fair enough. So coming in that Saturday, you going Saturday?
I am. I shall be there. Yeah,
I shall be. I'm begrudgingly dragging myself into the away. And what are you expecting then? What Brentford will we see? Style of play, line up, whatever.
Like I said, I'd like to see 3 up top, but I'm not quite sure how that would work because obviously we're missing Wiese, so that might be a slight tweak that he's going to have to go with. He might go with Carvalho, like I mentioned, and Mbeumo, like he did against Tottenham. I mean, obviously, like I want to see us to go at you. I don't want us to be a team that sit back and let you have the ball, because I want to be thrilled, shall we say. So if we can get at you very quickly and score in the first minute and then hold on to that lead, that would be lovely, because it's great to score against City in 23 seconds and 22 seconds against Spurs. But if you don't win those games as a result, it's annoying. And I think if you go back to last season and incorporating this season, we've dropped 30 plus points from winning positions. So there's an element of vulnerability there. And I do think both teams will score, because I'm not quite sure defensively we're at it at this present moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's the worst thing about us. We look so leaky at the back. All you need to do is win the midfield battle, which will be easy, and then play dead straight passes up to your centre forward, and our defenders just wave them through. It's brilliant.
Enough, you say that, but then again, Christian Norgard, I think, was missing. Was it the Spurs game? Oh, I think it was. I think he missed the Spurs game. Matthias Jensen, our other midfielder, he's out. I'm not sure how long he's out for. So we've had issues in midfield already as well. So injuries are picking up for us, which is a huge problem, because, as we mentioned earlier on, we're a bit light when it comes to our squad depth. So as much as I'd love to say we could play through you, which there is the ability to, it's just I'm not sure how strong we're going to be in terms of fitness and personnel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just doesn't take much at the moment, so you might be all right. West Ham finally broke the curse last season of beating Brentford. Jared Bowen hat-trick, 4-2 win, I think it was.
That's right.
At the London Stadium. We still haven't beaten you away in the league. I think we beat you last year in the FA Cup away 1-0. But yeah, I haven't beat you in the league away yet. But yeah, glad to get that sort of curse off our back. I didn't beat you at all. What do you think the score will be then Saturday? Are you confident?
Well, I am confident just because of how well we've been doing at home. Even if we're not playing brilliantly, like the Crystal Palace game, it could have gone either way. Like I mentioned, we still were able to kind of get a result out of that. So I am going to say it's probably not going to be like a 3-1 Southampton. I'm going to go a 2-1 Brentford.
2-1 to Brentford. And what I should have asked this before. That's normally the sum up question. But what have you made of West Ham? Are you fearful of anything, or are you worried about anything? Because you're obviously across all the Premier League games.
Well, obviously you mentioned Somerville already. He's been a brilliant find for you. I've always liked Mohamed Kudus. I mean, I remember when he played at the World Cup for Ghana, and I was just speaking actually to Chris Hughton, who at that point wasn't the Ghana manager, but he was part of the Ghana setup. And I was saying, this Kudus chap is brilliant. And he was, waxing lyrical about him as well. So I really like him. Obviously, you've got your Jared Bowen is fantastic. We know that he can, when he's on his game, my God, how positive he is driving forward. I think there's a lot to like about your team. Paquetá?
Yeah. I like Paquetá.
I never know how to say his name. It confuses me. I always get it wrong, and I should get it right, but I always go the wrong way. It's a bit like David Bowie and Bowie. I never know which way around.
Yeah, exactly. I go with Lucas Paquetá, but I think that might be just like the Cockney version of it.
I don't know how to say it. As you say it, you think, oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Again, another great player that. It was funny. What was the game where they didn't start and he had to bring them on at half time?
Oh, Fulham away, yeah. Where we Fulham
completely changed it
by us, yeah.
But they changed it along with Danny Ings, obviously, because he got the equaliser, didn't he? So they changed that game. So those two are very influential players already. It feels with Somerville being a new player. So I think there's quite a bit to like about West Ham.
There we go. You wait till you watch us for 90 minutes on Saturday. You might be saying somewhat different. Listen, Nat,
I've not done that before, so I haven't watched you for 90 minutes, so we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Look, it's absolutely great having you on. Thanks for coming on the We Are West Ham podcast once again. It's always lovely having you on. Nat Sawyer there, talkSPORT's very own massive Brentford fan. Looking ahead to that Saturday 3:00 game at the G-Tech Stadium. West Ham looking for just a second Premier League win of the season, and our journey in and around London continues, barring the Liverpool game in the Carabao Cup, of course, which was yet another disaster. Thanks for listening this week. That is it from me, Jonesy, and Alex. Me and James will be back for the usual reaction podcast early next week when the fun continues once again. Fingers crossed for a Hammers win. Up the Hammers. West Ham are massive. Thanks for listening. We'll speak to you next week.